Has your business established, committed to, and documented a formal sales process for the things that you sell? Because remember, you might be selling different things, right? You could be selling kitchens, you could be selling baths, you could be selling roofs. This is one of my clients, so he has posted his process of how he does business on his website for all people to see. So one of his pre-qualifying tactics, if you want to call it that, is all people have to have reviewed his website prior to him committing to going out for an appointment. If they haven't reviewed how he does business and can articulate to him why they feel he would be a good fit for their project, then he's not willing to go out there. So in addition to what you're seeing, which is really just one side of a trifold brochure, similar information is posted his website for you to see. My suggestion is check it out. See how he did it. See how he sets up what the goal of each meeting and each step is going to be and who's involved in it. Again, he's setting up what he wants to have happen so he doesn't have to settle for what he gets. Then I also suggest that you have a way of doing business that you can articulate not only to your customers, but how about to the rest of your staff? So everybody's on the same page, and as new staff comes in, that you can train them on how you're going to do business. Again, you can, we'll be able to get you out the handouts on this so you have a full-page printout of this. What I like about this as a way of showing the process is down the left-hand side are the involved individuals. And then going across the top are the milestones of the process. This particular slide we have up shows the project development process. And I would ask you to think about that name. Are you selling design? And is that why people think they own it? Or are you selling project development? You're getting the project ready for your company to build. When you're selling project development, you're getting the project ready for your company to build, not for anybody else's. So the customer has to commit to your company prior to the start of the project development process. But if you sell it as design, I find people tend to think of it just as design, and why can't I own it? Why can't I bid it out? This is different. You're selling a project development process. In other words, you've already sold your company. Now you're developing the project for the customer. So again, down the left side would be people who are involved and what steps they're involved and how. And then going across might be the milestones of the process. One other thing that I'm going to offer you here today is a sample design-build retainer agreement. What I would suggest is if what you're selling is design-build, you could keep the title as is that's on there. But on the other hand, if you like the idea of selling a PDA, a project development agreement, the process is going to be exactly the same, just the title would be different on here. But I've found it's just much easier to explain the design-build process to consumers if you explain it as a project development process, not as a design process. But if you want to use that sample design-build retainer, here's some key considerations for its use. First off, when you get a copy of it, it will have these call-out bubbles on it. So it's kind of like a cheat sheet on there explaining to you the importance of each step of the process. But here are the things I want to point out. You've definitely got to qualify and limit the scope of the work that you're putting a range budget on. Don't give an exact number. Use a realistic range, but limit that range, maybe within the existing footprint, products at a finish level similar to the existing building, assumes that you don't need a plot plan. What are the things that you're limiting the scope of work to make the budget realistic with the scope? Also be careful, no offense to the designers out there, but don't let the designer blow the budget. If the designer can't estimate, then don't let them introduce new ideas to the prospect or the client until those are vetted out through estimating. In this process, you're promising them to design the project within their budget, and perhaps you're going to promise them to give them all their money back if you can't design it within their budget. Again, think about it. What architect will redesign the project for free if their design went over the client's budget? To differentiate yourself, promise to design within budget, limit the scope so you can, and then hold them to that so that you design their project to their budget. Don't let the designer introduce things that will blow the budget. Don't let them do it. Also, I would suggest during the process, if you get this and you read through it, it explains that the drawings that will be created are concept only and are not meant for construction. Part of the point here is why take the project that far if their customer is not even committed to construction yet? Let them commit to the concept. Make sure the concept includes enough so that you can properly estimate the project. And if they commit to the project after the PDA or design build process, whatever you're going to call it, then you can finish the plans needed for construction and for permit application. So charge enough for them so that they're committed, right? If you don't charge enough for doing this, they may find that the value is enough there and they'll leave you and go to another contractor. So charge enough for what you do and then maintain ownership of all of the plans and specs until a contract for construction is signed. And one of the things that you'll see is built into this design agreement is a change order. In other words, if the client asks you to change the budget and or the scope, before you can do that, they have to sign a change order reflecting the changes to the scope and the changes to the budget, committing that now maybe instead of we agree to $100,000, we're willing to go to $120,000, and we're still going to be going forward with your company. Don't let them raise the budget or change the scope of work without first signing that change order, committing to the changes. All right, to speed up that process, here's what I suggest. That first, you establish a date by which the customer or the prospect has to sign your contract for them to be eligible to complete their project on time. So in other words, if you know when the customer wants their project completed by, you can work backwards from there and tell them when they have to sign by. And if they're not prepared to be in a position of committing to your company by that date, what would be the sense of getting involved in the project at all? So first, I suggest you establish a date by which they have to sign, and then you manage your process so that they have the information they need by that date so they can either commit or say no. Assign them and get them to do their homework in between meetings. If they delay, they don't get things picked out, you can't start the project on time. You certainly can't give them a fixed cost without them picking out their products. So do the best you can to get them to pick out as much as you can before you finish your concept designs and before you provide them with a fixed price proposal. So if they're not ready or you're not ready for any of the meetings that you've pre-scheduled, my suggestion is you postpone the meeting and you let your client know that if they don't do their homework, you are going to postpone the meeting. So assist your clients based on their express decision-making process. What is it they need help from you to do, to find? Who do they need to go talk to? What do they need to look at in order to make decisions during the design process? So first you have to identify what do they need, and then secondly, you have to help them out by identifying where they can go to get that assistance. Improving your sales skills. It's going to be key. Here's what I find. A lot of contractors may have gone to school to learn their trade, certainly put in the time, what I would call the lumberyard school of hard knocks out in the field. But how many contractors have invested in sales training? How many of you business owners have invested in sales training? How many of you business owners have invested not only just in sales training for yourself, but for your staff? Right? So I suggest you consider it. Here's what I suggest as a strategy and an investment if you're considering investing in sales training. First, decide if you're going to be a contractor or a construction business owner. Now, this isn't good or bad. This is just a decision of what it is you want to be. I suggest, at least the way I interpret it, if you want to be a contractor, what that means is you only have to be concerned about keeping yourself and a few other people busy, maybe one person in the office, several in the field. But you know what? It's not a very big company. You're probably not going to need to hire any salespeople. It might be just you who does all the sales. But if you're going to be a construction business owner, that's typically a larger business, and the business owner is there to lead the business, create the vision, help drive the growth of the business. In that case, the business owner has to think about creating work for not just themselves, but for a whole stable of people. So it's just two different business models. Again, doesn't mean one's right or one's wrong. It's which one is right for you, right? Which business model is right for you. Again, be a different investment depending on what your decision is. So once you've decided that, then I suggest you need to make a commitment that you're actually going to do this. Spend the money and invest the time. Then you find a program that's going to work for you. I suggest a formal program that's being used out there in the industry, one you can vet through other contractors or might have been involved in that program, and make sure that the instructor, the coach that you're going to be working with is somebody that not only makes sense for you, but perhaps would also make sense for your company if you're planning on adding salespeople in the future. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to force yourself to do things that maybe you're not comfortable with, because here's the thing. Learning a new sales process is one thing, but you're going to have to gain the schema for using it. You're going to have to actually experience getting out there and trying a new way of selling. I would also suggest that you assume it's probably going to be about 2 to 3 hours a week of training. The training class I went to, that's what it was, 2 to 3 hours. I think it was every Wednesday morning from 7 to 10 in the morning. And I went for 3 years of sales training and then 2 years of sales leadership and management training so I could become a sales manager and bring on salespeople into my company as it grew. It was well worth the investment, not only for the training I paid for myself, but I actually owned 5 seats in that sales training program, and it was worth every penny to be sending my employees there. You're going to have to practice, practice, practice. You're not going to get good at this unless you practice. So if you're a small business, maybe a contractor, and you don't have as many opportunities to sell like a full-time salesperson would be, you still got to get the practice. So even if you have to practice at home on your wife and kids or with your friends or your buddies or something, you have to find ways to practice and gain more schema. And just assume, probably going to cost you between $5,000 and $10,000 a year to do this. This is not an inexpensive option, but I tell you what, if you do it right, it's an investment that will pay you back many times over compared to the amount of money you may have put into it. How are you going to pay for it? You know, here's just a quick and dirty way to figure it out. If you know what your gross profit margin is, right, what gross profit margin your company's producing, then just divide the cost of the sales training by your current gross profit margin, and it'll tell you how many dollars of work you need to sell and produce at that margin just to break even on the sales training. So I put a few examples up here on the screen for you. Let's just say it cost you $10,000 for the sales training. If right now your business is accomplishing a 28% gross profit margin, you need to sell one job at $35,714, and the gross profit from that one job will pay for the $10,000 for the sales training. If you sell at a 33 margin or a 1.5 markup, you only have to sell one job at $30,303. Look at this. At a 1.67 markup or a 40 margin, you only have to sell one $25,000 job. And here's what I'll tell you. After the sales training and a really good selling system, it was a no-brainer and very easy for us to sell every day at a 1.67 markup. So think of how quickly you might pay back your investment if you can actually get your margins up that high and people are willing to buy from you and thank you as they give you the check. That's what I would suggest you strive for. Again, because not only did you charge enough for it, but you differentiated your business in a way that people were willing to pay for it. Using technology to support your processes as you're helping people through the design and the project development phase. So what is the technology you can use and bring into your business? First, I suggest you use your website. Use that as a way to help pre-qualify and filter out who's going to contact your business and who's going to go away. Again, post not only the work you do, but how you do business. What is it that they're going to have to commit to? Again, you can use technology to do that, much faster and less expensive than doing it live as a human being explaining this every time you talk to a prospect. You're also going to need quick, what I call what-if estimating ability. Your ability to quickly estimate the cost of the project as you design it and as your customer asks for options. So you'll be able to let them know as you design if what they're asking for is still going to be within their budget or not. I also suggest, and I found worked really well, was to use a product, say similar to 2020, that offers you the ability to show them 3D design and renderings that would help them imagine their project very close to the actual products and colors that will be included with those products when you do their kitchen. Again, one of the ways to help them with their decision-making process. I also suggest you find software and applications to help you communicate with and manage the communications between your clients and between meetings between you and your clients. right? Find those technology that can help support your process. All right, we're kind of in the wrap-up here. So here's a slide that shows you where you can get some of the resources that we talked about today.